this point.
So welcome to the Ipswich Business Roundtable. We do have our roundtable meetings here when we have them Wednesday mornings. I had them Tuesday mornings and I shifted to Wednesday.
This is it, you know.
Anybody with a small business,
Well,
or small or large business is welcome to join us.
The audience just increased by, however you count, 20%.
Just increased by a lot.
Just increased by 100%.
I'm not very good at math.
100%, okay.
We got
We double the audience.
Thanks for coming.
Right, yeah, we were waiting for you before we started.
Everybody's got so
Okay.
many obligations tonight.
So, please introduce yourselves and tell us what your background is. Who wants to start?
Sure. So my name is Sarah Gilliam. I'm running for Ipswich School Committee. Speak up, okay. We are relatively new to Ipswich. We've been here for about a year. We moved right before last year's town hall, before the contentious school vote. So came in at a very interesting time, and I think that actually gives me a little bit of an advantage because we didn't go through that. So I feel like I have a fresh perspective that I can offer to that. But even though we're new to town, I have quite a lot of experience in public schools. I've been volunteering in schools ever since my now 7th grader was in kindergarten, and volunteered in many different ways in the schools. Ended up as president of our school system's PTA for 3 years, which that term finished right before we moved. So worked with the superintendent and the school board, served on many different school-wide committees with other community members, so have quite a lot of experience in that area. So since we moved here, I'm on the council at Winthrop and where I have a 4th grader, and then at the middle school as well with my middle schooler. And then I've been attending all of the school committee meetings and budget meetings and tri-board meetings and
Scintillating, isn't it?
all of those. It is actually. I find it very interesting. So I feel strongly in being a part of your community and giving back, and so I'm looking forward to hopefully serving on the school committee as well. I think we have quite a lot of work we need to do, but I'm also optimistic that we have a lot of positive things ahead of us. We need to figure out what to do with the school situation in the aftermath of last year, but I'm optimistic in working together with the other boards and other community stakeholders to move things along in a positive direction. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Ready?
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Chubb Witten. I am running for re-election on the school committee. I have served 1 term plus a portion of another one. I was appointed before the term that I was elected to just previously. I have a strong sense of community service. I've exhibited that in the last few years on the school committee with various subcommittees. I was on the school building committee. That I heard they had 75 meetings, Richard.
Wow.
And there was
I remember most of them.
I also got involved in the Ipswich community activities with the Winthrop Playground, which was a great collaborative build. We set out to raise $200,000 for that, and we raised $300. We were looking for 100 volunteers, and we got 200. It was a really great community event. I was the co-general manager of that endeavor. I have previous educational board experience with 7 years at the Montserrat College of Art Board of Trustees. I'm also on the Regional Advisory Council for Career and Technical Education of Convale Regional High in Peterborough, New Hampshire, where I work, place where I work. I've enjoyed my time on the school committee. It's been impactful. I am particularly proud of the way the administration and the committee has been able to use the override resources that were graciously voted for given to us by the citizens of the town, and extend that override 1.5 to 2 years past its initial expiration date. We have, we did have a failed school vote on the new elementary school, so I'm sure we'll be talking about that in a minute.
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
Being very specific, what is your #1 goal for our schools how specifically can you accomplish this goal?
Rick, you
Sure,
looking at me?
yeah.
Okay, sure. To maintain fiscal constraints, we have I said we extended the override, but that doesn't mean it's infinite. We run at about an $800,000 deficit a year. We have an override that we need to discuss with the community coming up within a year and a half to 2 years. And I think about this time next year, we're going to have to band together. In addition to that, we'll have the elementary school situation as well to continue to deal with. And those two items may actually be linked. I'm just looking at the crystal ball, but keep the fiscal house moving.
Yeah.
So I agree with Chubb. I think budget is the number one thing. Ipswich has quite a lot of other large budgetary issues coming up. And so we have to figure out a way to balance those other budget needs with the school needs. There's currently the townwide facilities assessment going on, which will give us a clear picture on exactly what we need to do with the buildings. Both the elementary schools obviously need quite a lot of attention, and the middle and high school is 20 years old, also has some issues. So that will be something that we need to take a look at, definitely. Long-term planning, I think that goes hand in hand with trying to work together with the other town leaders and community members. We were both at the community development workshop last week, trying to piece together a long-term plan on exactly what order we want to address all of these issues. If we want to reapply for a state grant again to deal with the elementary school issue, I think we need to have a plan solidly in place if we're going to reapply and go that route. Green communities, we're now a green community. I think that will open up some grant money that we could possibly use in the schools, which would be beneficial. But really, having increased communication and collaboration, town-wide and community-wide to help address those budget issues, because it will be thorny, I have no doubt.
Thank you. I guess we'll alternate who answers
Sure.
first. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Sarah, when looking at the school budget, specifically, where would you increase the budget and where would you call for cuts and why?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. Well, a capital improvement, I think, is going to be something like we just talked about. There's going to be some needs with the facilities, so I wouldn't be surprised to see money going towards that. In terms of what to cut, I know we're taking a hard look at enrollment. Enrollment's declining. The needs of students are rising, though, so it's you've got this dichotomy with, even though you have relatively stable enrollment right now, but declining since where it was 10 years ago. But the needs of the students are then higher, so then the cost to educate per student has risen over that same time span too. But I think we are kind of getting to a tipping point where we may need to take a look and readdress that. Staffing costs is the largest cost of the school system. But I think we have to be really mindful of that, because lower class sizes is a good thing. So we will have to be very careful, I think, about approaching that, because I don't want to jeopardize the excellence that we have in the schools right now, for sure.
We do have a lot of excellence in the schools. So I'll tackle the hardest one first, and Sarah alluded to it. It's right sizing the school. We've been looking at choice to supplement our middle school model and keep the class sizes vibrant. Choice has been great because it's brought in other people from other towns, and they bring their own great set of positives to our community. But we're not getting the choice seats filled, and so we do need to start looking at class sizes and what we do on the middle school levels. There were, for example, last year I think there were 23 choice slots opened and 4 were filled. So that is one area that we need to look at. 80% of our budget is people, and we have fine, excellent people in our district. I am very pleased with our administrators, our teachers, our support staff, and I keep mentioning the social emotional piece because perhaps that wasn't there when I was in school, but it's there. It's here now. It's here now. All of our administrators and all of our teachers, they know every student. They know their issues. They know their families. I couldn't be prouder of this district. So when you're talking about right sizing, you're talking about whether hopefully you do this by attrition over time, but at some point we're going to have some difficult discussions about staff. And as far as the positives go, I'd love language. I'd love more arts. I'd like the sustainability programs that we're doing great in. Our test scores that just keep going up. So I am really confident that we're in a good place for our students.
Good. You've touched on a few issues we'll be coming back to right now. So, have you, and this one is for Chuck, have you had experience in conflict resolution? How do you resolve conflict?
Well, I have experience in the school committee in conflict resolution because I was a school committee representative on the labor negotiations agreement. You do it with a smile and fairness and persistence. So I that's how I do it fairly.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned earlier, I was a PTA president for our school system for 3 years, and before that I was the PTA president of our elementary school for 2 years, so 5 years being a president of a PTA. Yes, I have lots of experience in conflict resolution. And I think you do. You have to be willing to make concessions. You have to be willing to listen to both sides. There's always going to be the truth is in the middle, and you just have to have that spirit of cooperation and collaboration and kind of approach it, I think, with that attitude and just forge ahead positively.
Thank you. So Sarah, back to you again. How do you see us proceeding with 2 elementary schools?
Yeah. Oh, you're waiting for me to start. I thought you were getting started first. So I think that I don't have a clear answer right now. Like I said, we're waiting for the facilities assessment. Right now we're starting, essentially over after the aftermath of last year. So I'll be interested to see what that facilities assessment, I'll be interested to see what grants are available, through the green communities, and I think we need to have quite a lot of conversations. I was not a part of those earlier conversations, so I've been trying to get out and speak to as many people as possible, and I think it's going to require a lot of collaboration to figure out how to move forward. So I don't have a clear answer in my head. I think that it's going to be a group effort.
Okay, thank you. Chuck.
I think that we first, before we go back to the state and the MSBA to apply for a statement of needs for our elementary schools, I think we first need to align with our 2 elementary groups to make sure that the road that we're going down will get support from both the elementary groups. I think we need to, before we go to the state, we need to talk about configuration, whether it's K through 5, or K through 3 and 4 and 5, like we've done before. We need to make our mind up before we go get in the state process, and we need to make our mind up on whether it's 2 schools or 1 school with sites, and we need to have a memorandum of understanding before we go forward again to the state. I've been clear on my position on the schools since the first day that I spoke about them.
Thank you. So, you've kind of raised this chub already, and it's your turn, isn't it?
Sure.
So, where do you stand on school choice?
School choice, I voted for it. I voted for it. I asked the middle school this year to reduce their slots because I thought the middle school was trying to supplement its budgetary needs with wishes that just weren't coming true. And we have done that. I do like the different backgrounds. One of the, if you remember, the whale study on the whale blowholes, they had to figure out the robotics team. That came from not all of it, of course, but from a Gloucester student, and his dad really worked on that along with the Ipswich kids. That's a great example of what someone from outside our community can bring, because that was a phenomenal exercise for our student population. I love those opportunities, but our choice slots are not the only ones that aren't getting filled. This is a region-wide issue. A lot of schools don't have their choice slots filled. So I think that may be decided for us, and that we won't have choice as an option to supplement our budgets.
Sam?
So I agree with a lot with what you said. I think we have had this discussion at least the committee meetings that I've attended,
Sure.
that it's a declining trend, not just here, but in the whole North Shore area and even beyond that. So I think that we take a very mindful approach in opening up those choice spots. I know that they go to all of the administrators, and they very carefully then go to their teacher groups and decide how many spots to open up. So it's a very mindful process, but we are getting, you get a small handful of kids for each grade that's opened up. But I think we can also look at ways to make school choice more attractive. I know something that's been brought up is expanding the after-school care, because, trying to think of what would be obstacles for people not to choose Ipswich, and that was one thing, was after-school care. If you're coming from, another town, and we don't have after-school care here, then that makes it harder, to come and get your child. So things like that. So I think that also, you have to take a look at all of that to see how can we make it more attractive for people to want to choice in.
So, we got one of these wonderful job interview questions. And it's your turn.
Okay.
What is your biggest weakness?
My biggest weakness is I have a hard time delegating. I have that kind of type A organized personality, and I work great in groups. I believe strongly in collaboration and cooperation and strong communication, all those good C words, but I do struggle a little bit with delegating. I tend to want to kind of do it myself and make sure I'm doing it the way that I want to do, so I struggle a bit with that.
Mine's a weakness and a strength. I shoot from the lip. Although it doesn't always benefit me, I'm not sugarcoating it. And I also wear my emotions on my sleeve. So I take that as a weakness for me, but a positive for people who see me.
Thank you. So, we have two questions here, and they're kind of related, but asking separate things, if you like. So I'll ask the first one, but just bear in mind I'll kind of ask the same thing in a different way the next time.
Okay.
So, Chuck, declining enrollment will present staffing challenges if that occurs. How will you handle them?
I said that before.
Yeah.
If we have declining enrollment, And, you know, we also have an override coming up, so we're gonna have some tough choices to make, and we're gonna have to start thinking about cuts. If, you know, 2 years from now, if we don't get an override passed, and that's in our terms, we're gonna have to think about program and staff cuts. I hate to say that, but that's the reality. And so I'm going to try to be pragmatic. Of course, you want, if you need reduction in force, you'd love to have it happen by attrition and retirements. But if that's not to be, then there's going to have to be some tough discussions. We're not there today, so I don't want to say that that's, you know, going to happen in the next six months. But it's something we need to think about. I think we just had that conversation with Choice. You know, at $5,000 a student, even though you have a teacher in the room, you can put another student in the room. It's going to actually, in middle school sometimes, you can have a class size that's too small. It's nice to have, you know, it's not nice to have a certain amount of kids. And you know, when in elementary school it's like one teacher to one student would be great for everyone, but that's not necessarily the case with the upper grades. So yeah, that's the unfortunate. I mean, that's the job that we're given, is to look at policies like that.
Okay, thank you. Sarah?
Thank you. I agree. We have, you know, a lot of the same speaking points, but I think that is something that we're going to have to take a look at. I think something else to consider is the possibility of more students coming in, though, with a new proposed development. So they had, the planning director came in and gave a presentation and estimated that we could get as many as 300 students coming into the school system from the new developments. Not all at once, it'd be, you know, over a span of time, but that's something that I think we need to take into consideration as well. Again, just having strong communication amongst everybody in the town to kind of really get a handle on the long-term planning of what's ahead, so that we can plan accordingly.
Okay, so you kind of started walking into the next question there.
Oh, well, good.
Yes.
Good for me.
They're asking if large developments take place, what are the impacts going to be on the schools, and how would you go about preparing for that? So, Sarah.
Okay, well, I did partially answer that, yes. You know, our schools, even though we have declining enrollment, we run out of space a lot of times in the elementary schools, at least, because the kids do have a higher amount of needs. We have more special education students who need some extra space, so space is definitely an issue. If you're then adding on, you know, potentially 300 more kids, you have to figure out, I mean, something needs to be done at that point, and hopefully before that point. You don't want to get to a crisis point. You know, you want to be able to prepare for it before it's there. So I think collaboration and long-term planning.
Ethan was in from the new planning director was in the school committee and Parsons, and he did say it was 300 plus people. All of a sudden, though, he backed off a bunch of those numbers and will be getting back to us. So I'd say, you know, it's less than 300, more than 200, if all these developments happen, including the one on the Brunies site. Now, Winthrop had a population of 500 students at one time. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing, but we do have room in our system to take some more students. I would expect in the next 5 to 6 years that we'll be back on the road to a new elementary school or schools, and that could alleviate a lot of the problems. But remember, that elementary school was for 775, and there are more than that in our system today in elementary schools and students. So we'll make the
What's your gut? Where is it going with student population? Do you think those developments are going to bring in the numbers to keep us level? Or?
Well,
sorry.
No, you go ahead, Mr.
the Powderhouse Village numbers were spot on when they had the projections. So those were accurate. The other numbers that's been spot on for the last many, many years are the numbers provided by the state and the enrollment numbers of our students. They have a downtrend flattening out, so I think the numbers are gonna be, I don't think they're gonna be 300 new students, but if we have the Bruni's project as well, you know, we have 51 single-family homes over there, that's a lot of kids. And the single-family houses are made for kids. So that's gonna come to fruition, so I'd see 200 kids within 10 years on an increase.
About you, Sarah?
I agree. I think we will definitely see an influx coming in. It will just depend on how old the kids are. You know, you don't know. Are they moving in with babies? Are they moving in with 10-year-olds? You don't know. So how quickly we'll see that influx, or if it will truly be spread out. But they did say that their numbers from earlier projections were pretty spot on. So I feel like we should trust them with their predictions.
So, your answers have been very fast. Would anybody in the audience like to ask a question? Yes.
Sarah wasn't here for the run-up to the election, but Chubb certainly was a participant. One of my gravest concerns about the results was not but what it did to the sense of community. I've lived here since 1979, and I was amazed at how welcoming the town was, and even with people who have very different political views or religious views or anything. It is a wonderful sense of community, and that continued throughout all my experiences with town, and that suffered greatly during that, and people who had been friends for years no longer were friends or no longer speaking to each other, and it became personal. And my question is, do you have, whichever one of you want to start on this, but ideas for healing that before we get started with the hard work of planning for what the elementary schools are going to be like in the future?
Start?
Either way, your choice.
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
Yeah. So before we moved to Ipswich, I had the luxury of being able to research for 6 months. My husband took his job in Topsfield for 6 months before we moved. So I spent that time really researching the towns. And so even though we didn't move until end of April, beginning of May last year, I was aware of the issues. But reading about it online is very different from living through it. And so even though I knew about it and had discussions with people, when we moved in, all the lawn signs were out, and I talked to some neighbors about it and teachers, but it wasn't really until I started campaigning and deciding that I was going to run for school committee and going out to coffee with people and really having deep discussions that I really realized just how divisive and harmful it was. And it also made me realize I have very dear friends who were polarizing figures on either side of the issue, and I did not realize that until we really started getting into that. And so for me, I feel like, though that's a positive for me, because I have friends who are on both sides of the issue. We are in the gray zone for the schools. Our street, half of the elementary kids go to Doyon, half of them go to Winthrop. So I really kind of feel like I have a foot in both worlds. So for me, I think that I can be kind of a unifying force in that way. I know that's easier said than done. It's very raw for a lot of people. I purposefully haven't gone too deep into the details because I think that it is still so raw. But I am hopeful. I mean, I work well with a wide variety of people, and I think that I can be kind of that bridge builder to help. And I'm a new person. I wasn't, so I don't have that kind of stigma of being polarizing.
Thank you.
So one of my great joys in the last 2 years was being a parent host to the Step Up to Introduction to Middle School with the Winthrop and the Doyon kids. It was right in the middle of the school vote, or right before it. And the one thing that the best part about that is these kids didn't know each other at 4, at 6, they're all together. And it was a beautiful moment. So the first thing is our parent groups are important to begin discussions to build a community again. And I really think that we need to have long discussions with our both elementary communities in the best path forward first. The other thing that you may or may not know, since last summer we've been working on what's called an elementary working group, and we broke down the school building plan, and I can thank the principals from Winthrop and Doyon who have written this plan, and it's about to be published to everybody. It really brings out, what's the best in both elementary school bodies, and how can both benefit from them. They're not always going to be perfectly in line and do the exact same activities and teach the same way, but let's bring out the best in both. And that document's just about done. That's another piece of building community. I hope it's never us and them. I hope it's us.
Thank you.
I just realized I missed a question.
Oh.
Yeah, great. Do you think the school committee should remain independent? And I'm guessing this is to do with the government study committee.
17.
You want me to hit that
Sure,
one?
yeah.
Because I'm the one who has I was, and I have to confess, I did go to I did go to summer school for grammar, so as an elementary student, and but I have a problem with just some of the language in the article. It shouldn't be the selectmen shouldn't be the deciding planner. They should be a deciding planner. And if the word goes from D to A, I'm all for it. If it's not, I'm going to respectfully vote against it.
Sarah?
So the community that we moved from, we didn't have a select board, they call it the Board of Supervisors, but they were the overarching group, and I think that is common. And from what the Government Study Committee has indicated in their extensive research, that is typical in New England as well. And so I think it's okay. The school committee, they presented, and the school committee voted in favor of it. I know some of the other boards had a bit of a mixed vote. But I've also read, I think there was a letter that was published today that spoke exactly to that point, that it was reassuring in its tone that the school committee would remain independent, and that the way that the state laws are set up, that protects the school committee, and so that this possible change to the charter would not affect that. And so for me, I think it is good to have, I think it will be good to make the change and to kind of clarify some points. I think having that spirit of collaboration and good working relationships between the committees is crucial, but I think better defining everybody's role is a positive. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
I have an observation.
Okay. Can you phrase it as a question?
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Whitten, isn't the independence of this school committee guaranteed by state law? I believe it is.
I think so. I cannot answer that
Okay.
specifically, I'm sorry. Sorry, but I do think it is. And this gives me an opportunity. The school committee is charged with setting policy. Our administrators are charged with operations. And it's always tough to not wade into one or the other areas. And I constantly have to remind myself it's policy, not operations. Policy, not operations. So those are one of the reminders that I have to tell myself.
Except when you're building a playground at Winthrop. And
Right.
you're lifting
And
the
the school
shovel.
committee wouldn't fund it, so the parents did.
Do you want, oh, sorry.
I have one question. How do you feel about the recent combination of the two integrated preschools? And where do you think it will continue in that structure? Or do you anticipate either further change or further, not knowing if we'll continue forward with two separate elementary schools or one, how that might affect public pre-K education?
Could you first tell me how it changed?
We need some
I
background
know, I
first.
can speak to it too.
You should give the background.
Yeah.
Okay, the Doyon pre-K program moved to Winthrop. The reason it moved from Doyon to Winthrop is the Doyon teacher retired this year. This is an example of right sizing. This pre-K program has now combined with Doyon and Winthrop. Sister school districts have the same or similar models where they often share a pre-K group in one building and serve two different schools. So I would see that continue if we keep our populations the same. I would see that continuing, and it was. We were able to level fund the budget, and that was one of the reasons. Well, by doing that. And we did it because of attrition, and you know what? That's the way we want to right size. And that's what occurred.
And you like that change, and you think it will probably continue in that direction?
I think it will stay for the foreseeable future until there is a greater need because of population. I think it's an efficient change, so I support it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one was a tough one for me. So I went to the school committee meeting where the principals gave the presentation and originally spoke about this moving and the attrition and all of that. So they gave that presentation, and then I was also at the next budget meeting where they had parents from Doyon come and speak, and very heartfelt, admissions at how much this would change their family, and I can see that. I mean, as a parent of an anxious child, I think that it would make it more difficult to have them go to a preschool program where they're not going to eventually go to school, or where their brothers and sisters already are. So that really spoke to me. But then I think that the principals then also came back and did a good job of explaining. They were tasked with leveling out the budget as much as they could, and so they had to make some hard choices, and this seemed like a natural opportunity to right size, and they went and looked at other communities and found that it was very common for a school system of our size to have just one program, and so we were very fortunate to have two for so long. I have not gone back and verified that myself, but just from what they said. So I think it is hard, but I think that it also was the right choice, and I think that it is something to possibly readdress if we do get an influx of many more preschoolers. Then we take a look and see if we need to make changes.
And just so we're clear, these kids all come in pre-K together the whole time. Do they split out after into K or first grade?
Okay.
Okay.
They go to kindergarten.
Right. Any more questions?
Yeah, so I was reading the warrant yesterday, I noticed that, so the school budget was only increased by 2%, I believe this year,
Correct.
2% or something, and then one of the cost savings measures was you're able to keep health benefits down by, was it under 5% or something like that?
That was a good,
Yeah, I
that
was
was,
really impressed to
that
see
was a win.
Yeah.
That was a windfall that Joanne, go ahead, I'm sorry, you didn't finish your question.
Yeah, that was good. I think every year we hope, that's one of the things we hope to see.
Exactly.
So I guess maybe the question, if you guys would answer it different since you're new to town, so I guess maybe the question is, what other areas are being targeted for some other cost savings measures? Maybe you could speak to what's happening now that's sort of in the pipeline. And then for you, what have you seen in your previous community that is done differently? You could maybe benefit from that and do something different to save just maybe on top of mind.
Yeah.
First, last one.
Sure, I can jump in. So one of the things I've been doing is wading through the 2015 audit. And I find it to be fascinating because it is, I know, you laugh, but I really do find it to be fascinating. It's best digested in small chunks though, but because it really helps identify efficiencies. So the school system that I came from was huge. I tell people it's like if Essex County had a school system, it was very large. So quite a lot more moving parts, but I think every school system always has budget issues, so that is a commonality. So I see some differences, but I also see a lot of similarities, just on a smaller scale. So I think identifying efficiencies is definitely something that we can continue to take a look at. I know that the town and the schools share some services, which is awesome. But I think that it's always good to take a look and reevaluate and make sure that we're staying on top of that. I would love to see a little bit more increased access to information to the school district, so that's something that I'm kind of eyeballing as something that we could approve. So those are two just off the bat that I can think of.
So our big wild cards are transportation, special needs, and health insurance. And I think it was a $40,000 win on the health insurance in change, which was always a great thing. Transportation, I'll just give you a little footnote. We've been sending big buses out for small teams when we have a small team. We've now leased a small bus that administrators and can drive these kids to their games. You know, it's one of those small half buses that you'd see on a senior's shuttle. That's an innovative idea because we can't find drivers. It'd be great to have a driver. It'd be great to get a bus, but we can't find a driver or keep a driver because of the labor markets these days. Our Salter Transportation, we can only get one bus company to bid on our contracts. Very infuriating. Only one will do it. So, just saying. Sir mentioned that we've been combining services. We did it with facilities. I don't think we did it successfully with our prior facilities department. I thought the schools were underserved by our prior facilities department, and I voiced that. I'm very encouraged by our new townwide facilities manager. He's come from Somerville. They have a lot of legacy buildings in Somerville. I've worked there in that city and worked with the city. And he's also just come from implementing the same facilities program called School Dude that we have townwide needs assessment going on. He's just implemented that in Ipswich. We're going to see some results there on efficiencies. We've just combined our HR department with the town, and so those are the kind of efficiencies that we can make without affecting quality of delivery, service delivery. So we got some stuff. It's happening. Now we need 2 or 3 bus companies to bid.
Competition would help.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
I have two basic questions. Both of them focus on middle school and high school. There's been a lot of talk about the elementary school. I believe you guys both mentioned the middle school, high school once. And everybody else is kind of acting as if those students don't exist. But they do. And the school is 20 years old.
Yeah.
First question is, what kind of goes at 20 years? You know, what are we looking at? You know, what are, like, I would assume the HVAC system needs to be upgraded or replaced. Some of the other things, it's not a brand new building. And the second thing is that last time we were in the situation that you're talking about 2 or 3 years down the road, we were looking at cutting some of the upper level classes, particularly foreign languages, where I mean, they offer a grand total of 2 now, and I think French was going to be eliminated. Came this close to eliminating, becoming one foreign language school. Where do you think those programs are at risk, and where does a virtual classroom come in edge of the picture for some of those classes, where you have really high placement math classes or foreign languages, or, you know, I'm thinking beyond French, I'm thinking of Russian, I'm thinking of Mandarin, I'm thinking of, you know, Japanese, languages such as that. So those are, you know, one question is, what are we looking at as far as systems and things like that, and costs that might be going to go, that we can expect to go in the high school and middle school? And second of all, you know, what is the possibility of virtual classrooms, that technology entering the picture and maybe saving us some money? And you guys can.
I'll go.
Yeah.
Let's.
I don't remember.
Nicole told me I talked over you too much today, so, my wife. So I want to be cognizant that you get enough time, please, please. We have an 18-year-old middle school and high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke about our middle school and high school today at 2 o'clock to the Sisters of Notre Dame when Sarah and I were there.
Oh, okay.
And we spoke actually a bit about that. Physical plant, those are 3 types of shingles on the roofs. So asphalt shingles. I mean, we're going to need a new roof within 10 years. So that's a big ticket item, probably. And there I am shooting from the lip. You've noticed the freeze-ups we've had in the middle school and the high school over the last couple of winters, and that's been twofold. There was deficient insulation in the roof in the beginning, on the construction of the building. Sarah mentioned the Green Communities Act. That might be a place to get some grant monies, and then get that out of the capital budget at town meeting. And the other problems we've been having with the HVAC system are the valves are getting old. You know, hard water goes through these valves, they freeze, they stick. When they stick, they don't open, they don't deliver hot water, it gets cold, and it creates a flood. And that was a reason for, not this past winter's flood in the music room, but the one before it. So, yeah, you've got maintenance. And I said it in my last statement, we weren't well served by our last facilities department. I'm really looking forward to our facilities manager on the job at the schools, and he has been from the get-go.
So are we looking at like $1 million?
I can't give you the numbers.
Okay.
That wouldn't be fair. And then language, you know, we'd all love language, but, you know, let our administrators, kick that around as well. But that's way down the road. You know, I think we would love more foreign language. We'd love to see that language go. There was a Payne grant. We haven't talked about the FEFIs tonight either.
Yeah.
But there was a Payne grant last year to expose the elementary school kids to world languages. That's not teaching a child French or German or Spanish. That's just giving them and it happened this year. It was a program this year. I'd love to see languages start down in elementary school. We haven't had the funding to do that. And would I love to do that? Absolutely. We do also have another left side of the brain activity that is second to none, and that's our arts and music program. So I've spoken long enough, sorry, sir. That's all Nicole.
No, it's okay, go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yep.
So yes, I think from what I've heard, you know, again, this was before my time in Ipswich, but approaching 20 years old, the middle and high school, from what I've heard, it sounds like there were some budget problems building the facility, and
No bid, the problem.
So there are some problems, and you know, if you don't do it right the first time, then you pay for it now or you pay for it later, and now it seems like we're in a paying it later situation with pipes not being properly insulated, and so there has been a problem with them just kind of popping up, you know, different pipes freezing, and then you're having to deal with that. So that is something that, again, with that facilities assessment, that's something that they're really taking a deep dive into looking at. And the new facilities director, I've been impressed with him too. I think he's very sharp and great. So I think that I'm optimistic about that. For virtual classrooms, you know, that's so interesting. I don't know. I think that is something that would be interesting to have a conversation with the administrators. We have a wonderful director of curriculum, teaching and learning, who also I've been so impressed with. All of the professional development that happens, and the teachers working on their own curriculum, which is something that has gotten national attention and is something that they're now being asked to present at some of these professional development meetings and workshops. So I think that's something to be discussed with them to see what they think, if that would be something to be implemented.
So Sarah, the Payne Grant Committee has been providing great professional development and to our school system, and we've been sending teachers to the ITSE, which is a technology conference every year, and that's the conference we're talking about now. They're being asked to present at. And those places are where the next generation of 21st century learning skills come out of. They're not going to come out of me, a real estate guy. They're going to come out of an educator. So.
No? Okay. So why don't you lock up all these notes here?
Aye, sir.
Sure. Well, so I hope that gives you just a little bit better idea of who I am and what I hope to achieve, and just my personality. And you know, please feel free to reach out to me. I've got a Facebook page. I have an email. I'm a texter and a talker as well. But I really do feel strongly in the role that public schools play in a community, and that strong public schools is to the benefit of the community, whether you have kids in the school system or not. And so my whole point of ever being involved in the schools in the first place was for my kids. I'm obviously very highly invested in the schools, and but I really do enjoy the community service that it also provides, and just getting to know everybody. I mean, I feel like there's no better way to get to know your community than volunteering. I've met so many more people since I've started campaigning, and that's been so nice. So yeah, I'm looking forward to serving if elected, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Chuck?
Thank you for the opportunity to sit down here tonight, John and Ann. I look forward to serving another term as a school committee member. It's been an interesting time these last 3.5 years, and we've had. Sometimes if you feel like Sisyphus, you push the rock up the hill, but you never get to the top. But we're making great progress. I'm very proud of our students and their results and their ability to tackle the world. And that's why I do this, and that's why I also have 2 children in the system. I have 2 daughters. One's an elementary student, and the other one's in middle school. Both are excelling in this system, and I couldn't be happier or more proud of them. I'm not on Facebook. I will be on Facebook when my daughters get old enough to be on Facebook.
I don't want to be on Facebook.
I am accessible. My cell phone's listed on the town website, so give me a call. And if you think I've treated the Ipswich school system fairly and represented them fairly, I respectfully request your vote on May 21st. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you both for being willing to serve.
Thank you.
It's a great community service, thank you.
Yeah.